Okay, hello everybody out there in internet lands. Welcome to the Land Down Under, and tonight we are discussing The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, which is an author I've read quite a few books by. So this was my pick, and I finished it 10 minutes before this hangout started. It was close to the wire this time. So that means that I have not had a lot of time to resolve my thoughts. In fact, the only thing I did was at the end of it, I went, this was such a Hufflepuff book.
Maybe that's why I liked it.
Yes, exactly. Which I did thoroughly enjoy reading, so it made me happy. Okay, who'd like to go next? Elizabeth?
Sure, I enjoyed it thoroughly also. Had a little bit of, oh, you know what? Liv on our chat said that she imagined Arthur being cast as Taika Waititi, and that was just in my head the whole time I was reading it. Just perfect casting, Liv. Just delightful.
Awesome. Jean?
I liked it, but I didn't have any strong feelings about it either way, which was kind of strange, but I'll talk a little bit more about that later. It was good. Again, I had the Taika Waititi thing going as well, which probably made it better for me, I think. But yeah, I think there was a few things missing that it could have expanded on.
Who's next?
You are, Kirsten. I said
Oh,
you,
is
but,
it? Sorry,
maybe
you must
my-
have...
I didn't hear anything.
No, I didn't hear anything, and then I'm like, who's she gonna say next? Okay, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a Hufflepuff Mel. I don't know. But yeah, I really loved it. I did the audiobook. I'm not 100% on the narrator of the audiobook, but I loved the book anyway. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Who said what there? What was that?
Wasn't a
Naomi
fan
said
of the narrator.
Yeah, but someone said something in response.
That. Naomi said that.
Naomi
I
agreed,
said
yeah.
Naomi and I.
Agreed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of Naomi.
So I feel very much like G did. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I did not have strong feelings about it. I felt like it was, I don't know who this book was for. And
I feel like Karina wants to say that.
and yes, I just,
In terms of age, because there were points in which I felt like, I don't know how many of you actually went and looked at the review that Matt referenced, but that review referenced the fact that they felt like a lot of the writing was talking down to the reader, and there were definitely elements where I felt like that, where I was like, okay, so if it were targeted at a younger audience, that would be fine, but I don't think it's meant to be targeted at a younger audience because there's some pretty heavy themes in there. So I had a really hard time trying to figure out whether this was targeted to, like, I don't know, late primary school, or if it's meant to be YA, or if it's actually meant to be for adults. And that sort of threw me a little bit. So yeah, I enjoyed it, but also did not love it. But then I am not a pup, so I'll be over here.
that too.
Yep.
Fair enough. Liv?
Well, I'm a Hufflepuff, so I guess I loved it.
We're seeing a trend here.
That said, at the very start, it was a little bit slow. I wasn't that sure about Linus or not. And then when they got to the actual house and I met everyone, I went, oh, this is what it's about. Oh, I'm liking it. Oh, I'm getting better. Ooh, there seems to be something going on between Linus and
Arthur.
Arthur, my brain, yeah. And then there was a thing about with Arthur where he like raises his eyebrow really like in a way, and I went, that's Taika Waititi, isn't it? And then from there, that's how I just went, okay, I'm just going to enjoy him like that. Oh, and then I was like little bits of hints like they're going to get together, like, oh yeah, this is so cute. I'm getting more excited about their relationship. But anyway, that was my thoughts. Rock thoughts.
Sarah?
Well, I'm Hufflepuff, but I'm big Ravenclaw tendencies, 60-40 here. So I'm like, it was good, but I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. Like, we've read worse novels. We've read ones that are much worse written. Like, this is well written. Don't get me wrong. It was well written. I think that I didn't mind the narrator. I thought he did a good job with the accents, so it was really easy to differentiate between different characters.
Yes, but then there was Chauncey, and the whole time I was like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, can you not?"
What did they do
I
for
like his
that?
voice, actually.
Did
Everybody
everybody
goofiest of goofy voices that
Yeah,
you've
who
ever
did
heard.
it?
Oh dear, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, wait, did anybody do something other than? Did everybody else do the audiobook except for me?
No, I
I
read
did.
the Kindle version. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, e-version for me too.
Anyway,
Whereas,
I didn't mind it. I didn't mind the Chauncey thing because I thought it was a juxtaposition to him being a monster. So that's what I I didn't mind that. I also, thanks, Liv, I hadn't even started the book when you actually put that in. So even though they kept saying he's blonde, I'm like, no, he's not. He's dark and swarthy. With
Well, look,
beautiful
they did
grey
say
hair.
they did talk about his dark eyes. So
Yes,
Yeah.
which is like going.
It was like his
so I was
outfit.
like,
and his outfit, yeah.
His outfit. There's a movie of this. He's going to get cast. That's the way it is. So like that a lot. I am with Karina and Naomi. I don't know who said it first. I think it might have been Naomi, and then Karina elaborated on it. I also, that was my main reflection. I'm like, who is this for? Because it reads like a children's book in a lot of ways, but it's normally from a child's perspective, you know, if you were going to tell the story. And there's, a lot of themes in this that aren't necessarily child-friendly, like a romance, you know, people aren't really that interested in romance. I was like, well, it's not really a YA book. Is it like slightly older than YA? I was also kind of a little bit
There's like an implied fade to black, so it's not really a kid's book, but it's not really a YA book. And
so I was a little bit
either. And
and that for me was the
pretty
thing
much
that I felt-
answered that it's definitely not YA because he's got a YA book coming out through the same publishers, so they would have published it that way if that's what they intended it to be.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the bit that I was kind of confused on. And I suppose it's the world building part that I felt like he didn't elaborate on it in one direction or not, and I think that would have helped it. I like that he didn't have to spell everything out, that you just discovered the world through experience. But at the same time, I was like, well, what is? Yeah, I don't know. There was just those kind of things. But yes, that was my takeaway. Who's next?
Oh, that was everybody.
Oh yeah, go for it.
G? Did you go? Oh no, G did go. G did go. Never mind.
Did Mel go?
Yeah, I went first.
Oh.
I didn't have much to say.
You know what this book reminded me of? Yeah, I'm probably showing my age here. But do you guys ever see the TV show The Darling Buds of May?
Yes.
This is what that book reminded me of. Because he was like the lawyer that had, he was like a tax accountant, and he was there to audit them because they weren't paying taxes and stuff. And he's so straight-laced and like, I'm here to check up on you. And by the end, he's like part of the family. I kept thinking of that show the whole time during this book. Even though, like, there was no magical elements to that show. It was just his character reminded me of.
And then he checks up with Catherine Zeta-Jones. Yeah. And, and I was a kid and I loved that. My mum loved that and I loved that. So, I don't know.
I thought the opening scene with him working in the office and everything reminded me of the opening scene with Tom Hanks in Joe versus the Volcano. Has anybody ever seen that?
Yeah, and that was the thing. I was trying to watch that the other day and I couldn't sit through it because I hate those kind of scenes where you're being made to hate the world so much. And I was a little bit like Liv. I was like, oh God, if this doesn't stop soon, if this is going to be the world you're building, I'm out. Right,
I kept thinking it's like 1984 light. Like, it's like they're going for dark, but it's not that dark. But it's And also, I kind of felt the whole world was really dystopian, and then it's sort of, you get the idea later that it's not the entire world, it's mostly just this company that he works for, or
and the city that never stops raining.
The government, it's the government sector that he works for.
Yeah. Like it's Blade Runner. It rains all the time.
But he never remembers his umbrella. You think if it constantly rained, you would just get into the habit of taking your umbrella.
Or you just get over it. You just go, that's life. Like,
I think that's sort of
You
a
own a
reflection, though, of
jacket
his
for
mental
it?
state.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that the whole forgetting the umbrella thing was less about, like, the reality and more of a show of he's not enjoying his life, and this is an opportunity just for him to show how much he was miserable.
Yeah.
actually, interesting point about the whole, what did you call it? In 1984 light.
Yeah.
Kirsten, I was just reflecting on extremely upper management, which sounds like something from, what is that, like, thing that, that Neil Patrick Harris is on Netflix, unfortunately.
Series of Unfortunate Events.
Yeah, like it has that kind of title to it. That bit in extremely upper management where they're all like peering down at it from a cliff in a dark thing.
Yes.
I mean, it's
And
so...
all the lights suddenly go off.
12 Monkeys. That's a fucking scene from 12 Monkeys. So
I wrote it.
Dramatic? Yes. Feel like a Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, I basically wrote down a note about it, and I called it surrealistic. It's basically this surrealistic feel about the whole. That first section was very sort of surreal. It didn't feel like it was real. It felt like everything was overemphasized.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do. Sorry, Elizabeth, you want to go?
I was just going to say, if we're talking about influences, this was definitely Good Omens fic.
Oh, right.
This was definitely Good Omens fic that has been carefully changed.
Really?
Right.
Well, that's what I think.
The Enterprise thing.
And like, if you look at Arthur and Linus, they're both a mixture of Crowley and Aziraphale.
Yeah, I can see exactly what you're saying. But add in the Antichrist child, and you've definitely got that feel for it.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah,
it probably explains why I liked it so much, though.
And I mean, it's got a similar kind of tone to it in a way, except that, as Naomi's pointed out, they haven't quite nailed the target audience.
Yeah. I was just reflecting just then. I realised that 12 Monkeys was directed by Terry Gilliam. Brazil, which this also reminded me of, was directed by Terry Gilliam. And the other one, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, which again is like this kind of like Terry Gilliam. So I got a funny feeling he's a big fan of Terry Gilliam.
That bit I don't know. I've read a lot of his work, and I've got to say, compared to his other books that I've read, this one was so tamed down in terms of, like, he writes extremely funny and extremely emotional things. Like, he's one of the few that I can almost guarantee he'll make me cry when I read one of his books. The fact that I didn't cry during this one is a miracle, and possibly a sign of the fact that I was basically forcing myself to read.
I did. I cried at the end when he started reading when he quoted back the poem from. I was like, that got me that bit. I was just.
It probably would have gotten me normally, except for I was looking at my phone going, oh shit, I'm not going to finish on time, I'm not going to finish.
Naomi, I think you had something to say, didn't you?
Oh, what now?
You had something that you were trying to say earlier.
Did I?
Never mind, it's gone. Clearly the moment's gone.
It's gone.
Sorry.
Whatever it is, it's gone, it's fine.
It's funny how, like, the feeling that I've got in this book is, like, so flat, and yet there are so many little bits that I really quite enjoyed, like that poem, or the typewriter in the cupboard scene, or the Phoenix bit, or the idea at the end of gathering all the files and gathering more children, or so many little bits that I really enjoyed, but it still felt very kind of, I was waiting for something else to happen.
Maybe that's it. You were looking, like, this is definitely what I would call a quiet book. And so maybe that's what it was. You were waiting for the bigger thing to happen, when really it was just a small story that was telling about, some people trying to make small changes in the world, but, doing their best as they can to do that and finding happiness along the way.
I kind of like the quietness. I was reading it in I have a whole reading chair now set up.
Ooh.
So that was what I was reading on Saturday. And I think just sitting in that little chair with a cup of tea on the side and then reading this book was just like a very cozy hygge feeling. And I went, oh, I like this.
Yeah, but, and that's what I would put this book as. I would call this a cozy book. It's not supposed to be anything other than that. it's got some themes and things going on in it, but they don't, I think Karina said it before, that he doesn't really go into depth on a lot of it. He sort of brings them there, and you have a bit of an awareness, but he's not trying to solve and save the world in this one book. So
No,
Yeah.
it's very wholesome.
Yeah, I
it's
think
very
Jee's right.
Hufflepuff.
Jee's right. It's almost a lot of little vignettes strung together. There's no point of like, we're at the halfway mark, we go like, you know, your 3-act structure, or we got to hit down to get back up again kind of thing. Like a lot of those, it's these nice little, points strung together. It's the character is going through an emotional journey, which it's not necessarily the environment, like what's happening outside is going through it, if that makes sense. You know, sometimes we read, like, I guess I stopped reading or listening to Starsight, and like, which is, you know, Brandon Sanderson for starters. So it's always like, oh God, you know, and sometimes you just got to take a break. You're like going, oh, are they going to get through it? Of course they're going to get through it. Or what, you know, it's always just a little bit too stressful. So this is definitely not like that at all.
That was a larger part of why I thought it was a good pick, because, and in times like these, I thought a cozy read would be very nice. So
yeah. Which is why I'm watching The Babysitters Club, because, you know, they were always my cozy reads.
Yeah, good cozy reads. The other thing I probably would have said personally for myself as a critique was that it was extremely predictable, but in some respects that's kind of what makes it a cozy read. Down to the point that I even knew that he was going to be a phoenix when they figured that out. So I was like,
well done.
Okay. How many people figured out that he was a phoenix before it was announced?
I guessed it. I think there was one hint towards, like, I didn't get it until nearly before they said it, but there was a big hint dropped just before they actually spelt it out. But
also
like,
they foreshadow it with like his choice of socks, especially.
Oh, see, I didn't get it.
He had an orange. He wore an orange pair, and he also wore a pair that was blue with like clouds on them.
I got it from the cellar door when he first found it.
Sorry, what was that, Sarah?
A lava monster.
Can you interpret my dreams? Because I would never have gotten that symbolism.
I got it from when he first found the cellar door, and there was the burn marks on the outside. I was already had the feeling that he was something, and then the burn marks, I was like, Phoenix.
Yeah, I thought he'd done something to someone down there. I didn't realise it was a place, because of the way up at extremely up management were going on about things and all that. I was like, yeah.
See, I already knew.
Him being the way they went on about him being also confident, like, you know, he's the level 4, and I was like, he is also a magical thing. We will find out what that is later.
Yeah, no, I guess he was magical. I just thought that maybe he had an evil streak in him, like Lucy, which is why he'd done something to somebody or something in the cellar. That's what I thought. I thought he had tortured someone.
I thought he was maybe like Lucy, but like something to do with. I thought it was something to do with fire, but I didn't think of Phoenix. I was like, maybe he's like the devil, and maybe he's actually Lucy's dad, or like, I don't know. I don't think I had a clear idea of it. I knew it was something, but I hadn't put my finger on it until I went actually into the cellar and the whole thing was burnt. And then I think there was something else that was dropped as a hint. I can't even remember anymore.
He was very warm.
Yeah.
And then there was the orange flash when he left.
I knew it had something to do with fire from quite a while before, but I don't think I actually got to Phoenix until close to the end.
Yeah, but he'd also disappeared after the orange flash, so I was like, he flew. Hence Phoenix. But anyway.
They used that. That was. I just remembered what it was. They actually mentioned a phoenix. When he said, "Oh, I used to know a phoenix," that was when I got it.
Yeah, that's right.
Because he was like, "I used to know a man who was a phoenix and blah blah blah, and he did this and that," and I'm like, "Oh, he's talking about himself." That was when I figured it out. I knew there was a big hint dropped, and I was like, "Oh, that explains all the flashes of light and the fire and shit," and I should have thought of this earlier.
Yeah. And to be fair to the author, I've read a lot. Like I've said, I've read a lot of his books. Before this is his first non-romance book, and
I wouldn't say
because that was the thing I was thinking. I was thinking this could have had
let me put this into context. Let me put this into context. All of his books prior to this one were published by Dream Spinner Press, which only publish romance books. This was his first book that was accepted by a non-romance publishing house.
Right.
Is more what I mean. I doubt very much he ever will write a book that doesn't have a fairly strong romance book.
No, but it was actually funny because I was just reflecting that if there'd been a bit more happening, maybe a little bit more conflict or a little bit more longing looks and like a lot more, this could have been a romance novel. Like,
yeah.
Their feet touched. They're touched.
Sarah, you were speaking earlier about the structure. It actually follows a romance structure pretty closely.
Yeah. But that's what he knows.
And that's another
romance.
point about cozy reads. Romance novels are wonderful cozy reads.
Yeah.
You know
what's going to happen, and they're not stressful,
and they're predictable.
Yeah.
Which is probably why I'd never at any point suspected Arthur of having done anything actually bad.
Right.
Because I know the author and
I want adventure and exciting times.
Which is fair. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but yeah, it was.
I
knew that was going to be
a
it.
twist in this somewhere because that's the kind of things I watch and read.
Well, I did entertain the idea
Lionel,
that it was going.
That Linus might be something that he didn't know, or that had been wiped, or had been sent there by upper management because he belonged there, or I don't know. That's what I was waiting for. I'm like, there's something here there's something more that's going to happen here, and then it didn't happen.
No. And I suppose that's the other thing I know that he writes. He always writes extremely. They at least always think they're extremely ordinary main characters.
Oh.
Yeah, so because he pretty much places himself in every main character.
Is he Australian?
No, he's not.
There was a lot of mentions of Australia in there, wasn't there?
Was
that this book? Maybe it was the last one I was reading.
I don't remember. I mean, it might have been one mention, but I don't really remember anything beyond that.
I don't think so.
Oh, no, that was Space Opera. It mentioned Melbourne a few times and Brisbane.
There you go.
Yeah, because there's an Australian authors. No, ignore me. No, that's the other book we read who's got two authors and one of them's oh, God.
Which book are we talking about again?
They're all the same.
Actually, I thought that was done very well. I couldn't have told you where this was supposed to be, other than somewhere.
Or what time it's supposed to be.
Or what time period. Like it's like an alternate universe to ours, which I really liked.
They still had mobile phones.
Did they?
Mm-hmm.
Did they? But then why were they still using mail as a means to send messages, and why?
And they were using records too. They didn't have
records, and also the phone call to the line at the train station.
Maybe I did get that wrong. I thought they still had mobile phones.
I don't remember anything of a mobile phone.
I mean, don't get me wrong. They could have had 90s mobile phones that did nothing. You know, like five numbers and that's it.
But at the same time, they did talk about Sal possibly having a computer in his room instead of the typewriter. So that sort of made me go.
That is true, yeah. I remember.
I was like, oh, maybe the technology is at a higher level than we think.
They were listening.
He worked at a computer. He worked. Linus had a computer, but they talked about, was it the green? Flashing green.
Yeah.
Like 70s.
So maybe it was supposed to be like the 70s or the 80s sort of thing. So it's sort of
that's kind of what it felt like.
The time ends up like something.
I did get that impression.
Especially since he stole all the files at the end, and if they were in the modern era, all the files would just be stored digitally.
Exactly. And it would explain why the records were around without necessarily, like he never talked about tapes, but the records still felt slightly like they were a bit vintage.
Yeah, because they were like,
same time.
You know, all the old dead people, and they specifically referred to the day the music died, and like, so it's like, well, it's definitely our world, but it's obviously an alternate version of our world.
Yeah,
and if
still
it
has
later,
these artists that we've heard of.
Yeah,
and it's definitely after that they've died. Sorry, Karina.
Sorry, if it were later, he probably also would have been obsessed with like the 27 Club and that as well, not just.
Who the hell's the 27 Club?
So
all those artists,
everyone who dies
Amy
at that
Winehouse,
Janis Joplin.
Yeah.
Janis Joplin.
Michael
There's a whole heap of
Hutchins,
musicians who all died at the age of 27. They're
Oh,
referred
I
to.
forgot about that.
Was it?
Like, I know who all those people are,
Jimi
but I didn't know they were all
Hendrix.
27 when they
They
died.
all died at
Nice.
27. It's very weird.
Yeah.
That's,
I'm
um,
turning 27 this year.
I had an education tonight.
Yeah.
Don't live, you're not in music.
You're fine.
Actually, when they were talking about the day the music died, all I could think was American Pie in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, Don McLean.
Yeah.
And see, this is even something I have never heard before as well. I haven't heard the day the music died before. So obviously music reference is going over my head.
So the song American Pie has the line "The day the music died," and it's written about this plane crash that killed Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper and
Frankie Valens.
Richie Valens.
Thank you.
Right, which is what they were talking about when they were talking about all of those artists that were dead.
And
Right,
I'm
okay.
pretty sure he wrote that in either the late 60s or early 70s was when
Early
that song was
70s.
written.
Okay, yeah, I'm going with this is set in the 80s then. That sounds pretty good to me.
Kicked my cord for my camera and it just went blah.
I
But I
believe
also like that it was a progressive enough that being
Was that Karina?
I believe it was referred to as the day the music died before American Pie came out.
Oh,
Yeah.
was it?
yeah,
It
that's
was-
what the
it
headline
was-
said.
Because there's also a day that disco died. And
Disco is not dead.
oh no, there's like a definitive
Sarah.
day where the charts stopped tracking disco so heavily.
Right.
Sarah, you were saying something as well.
Just to say, I think I don't remember. Oh yes, I do remember. One, I think Karina is spot on because I do think that the headlines on the papers, there was a paper headline, a newspaper headline that said "The day the music died," which is where it came from. The second thing I want to say is that the other thing I liked about this alternate world was how progressive it was. Like the neighbor who was talking about her accountant nephew, and like apparently it seemed to be the attitude towards being gay was a lot more acceptable.
Yeah, because you would have thought that if
Yes.
anyone was going to be not accepting, it would have been her if the whole society wasn't pretty accepting.
Yeah.
Like, because she
And
seems
she was
pretty...
like, well, they're going to get married in a church because they're good churchly men or good godly men.
Godly man, yeah.
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 But at the
See,
same
I think
time,
that's-
Linus still seemed to feel a bit ashamed.
Yeah, I
She
know
was
There were
that
embarrassed
too.
in
times where
anything.
he refused to say the word gay, and I was like, again, is this because we're not sure who this is targeted towards? So we're not sure if we're allowed to use the G word, or because you don't feel comfortable saying it.
Or maybe in this universe, the G word doesn't need to be used. I don't know.
I don't know.
See, I didn't question any of that because, again, going back to his previous books, everybody's gay. So
Yeah,
there was
that's
a
what
large
got
number
me,
of gay
because
people.
I hadn't quite finished yet, and Naomi had, and she was like, "So have you gotten to the other romance yet?" And I was like, "Other romance? Who the hell else could possibly look up?" And then at the very end, and the two ladies were obviously together as well. And I was like, "Of course, there's another gay couple in it. Why wouldn't there be another gay couple in it? That makes perfect sense."
he basically, I've actually heard him, he's tweeted a lot about it, and he's basically like, I'm gay, and it means I get to write an entirely gay world if I want to.
That's fine by me.
Awesome.
I've got no issues with that. If people
Maybe
really
that's
loved
why it
us
wasn't
and
mentioned
respecting
then,
one
because
another, that is all good.
everyone,
Yeah.
But it
everyone
wasn't
in his
because
world.
because when he first, remember, she's like, who's the girl, and then he's like, and then she was like, oh, that's right, you're not into girls. So obviously everyone in the whole world isn't gay in the story.
No,
Just the ones that are in this particular book that are, you know, characters.
Sorry,
that we
I should have
have
clarified that. When I say everyone's gay, I mean all the characters are gay, not the entire world is gay.
Well, it's not something that we've really seen before. I'm sure it has to exist, but it's not something I've read before where it's flipped that the majority are gay and straight is the minority. I'm sure that
in fact,
there's probably a
there's
novel
been-
that has that, but it's not
there's
something
been
I've seen.
A lot of discussion that I've been seeing lately in LGBT spaces is about the fact that in especially a lot of Western writing, when there is a gay character, it's really weird how they're like the only one, when most people who identify that way tend to gravitate and become friends with others who are also, not that they're exclusively necessarily, but it's very weird to be like solo. And so I feel like that's one of the things I like about TJ Klune is he's like he's just out there and he's like, I'm going to completely knock that over.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the kids?
I was just about to say
Yes.
that, and I want to say I will die for Chauncey.
I love him. It's so,
I love
him.
Chauncey.
I love him so much.
I love Theodore and I love Sal.
Yeah, me too.
I love Talia.
I was thinking of Chauncey, you know, in the Boo outfit in Monsters Inc.
Yes. I kept thinking
yes.
of Monsters Inc.
I just kept thinking of Slimer from Ghostbusters.
Yeah, how does he not get all of the washing? Like, he's like, I'll wash your clothes. I'm like, but no, please don't. Slime.
These small child don't wash my undergarments.
Please stop going through my drawers and things.
Oh gosh.
Makes him
I
so
did like
happy.
how
How
he
would
had-
you say no?
I like how that was such a simple dream, though. It's
Yeah.
That's lovely.
It's and of course, as a kid, you do dream of those simple things. That's what you want to be. My brother wanted to be plankton when he grew up. You know, like
Plankton.
yes, plankton.
That's the most charming thing I've ever heard.
Right? Yeah, a bellhop. Oh,
I know. I wanted to be a petrol pump lady.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm afraid that job's not. There are not very many of those jobs around.
No.
Yeah,
anymore.
but that's the thing, right? That's how old I was when I wanted it, right? They still
Yeah.
existed.
There's one round the corner from me that still exists. Just one. Just the one.
Just the one. That's it.
We went to one when we were in Tassie a few years ago, and then they came and pumped it for us, and we were like, we don't have any cash. We still have to get out of the car and go inside to pay because
That's it,
we
right?
only have a credit card.
Yep.
Oh.
So anyway.
Anyway,
Let's
the
talk about the
children.
kids.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what else about Chauncey, how in the end he melted into a puddle. That was
It's hard to pick a favourite, but he's up there.
Yeah.
He's very cute.
No,
Should we
I'm a
talk
fan
about
of the
Lucy?
Antichrist, thanks.
Lucy.
even
my least
Lucy.
favourite. He was my least favourite. Sorry.
Oh, no.
Why?
Great.
Lucy.
Yeah, I don't know. Just precocious kid.
Yeah.
Fucking know it all.
I probably wouldn't have dealt very well with having to deal with him.
Look,
Yeah.
I was probably Lucy. Let's be honest. This is why.
I love the fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
So great. Play into the stereotype, kid. Love it.
Yeah.
But I do like he got really excited about sharing all his records with Linus.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I like that bit.
That was terrible.
In fact, the
And
whole
him and
trip into
J-Bone was
town.
hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the whole
Oh,
thing
yeah.
in town, yeah.
And if you listen to the whole thing, that was so funny.
Oh, yeah.
righteous little dude.
Yeah.
It was like the
righteous.
It reminded me of the turtle in Finding Nemo. You know, the surfer
Yeah.
turtle.
Yes.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Finding Nemo? It was the same
Which
voice.
is played by
That
the
was the
director,
voice.
Andrew Stanton. He actually is the turtle. But anyway.
Yeah, but
Yes,
that's
I
exactly
liked
the
him.
kind of voice I was hearing. And I liked Talia's connection with Helen as well.
That
Yeah.
was lovely.
Oh, it
That
was really
was.
nice. That was one of my, when you talked about the vignettes, that was one of my favourite scenes, was actually interaction between Talia and Helen. I love
Yeah.
that. And Helen sounded, for those who listen to space opera, like the bird, like the Roadrunner did, right when the Roadrunner met everybody.
Very southern drawl.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're the sweetest little thing.
Oh, sweetest little thing.
Oh, interesting.
I was like,
choice of
oh, the
voice.
Roadrunner's back.
So,
I mean, sorry, go.
no, having read it and not listened to the audiobook, for some reason, everyone sounded British in my head. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
There
It's all
is a
American.
British
Bit
feel
British.
to it.
That was
Yeah.
one of the things I
Wasn't he
didn't
in
like
London?
about the narrator, was because they used a lot of language that was British. Like they said bugger a few times. And then when you hear an American say
London would
bugger, they
make
don't say it
sense.
right.
Did
Yeah.
they
It
say
doesn't
that?
sound right.
He's American, though. I'm pretty sure it's if it's
Really
anywhere, it's probably
American?
Because
America.
London is grey and rainy as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
But they
Yeah,
said
but
there was a few words that
So
I was like,
Seattle.
that's not an American word. It was bugger was one of them. And then there was something else as well that I was like, that's very British. And yet this like narrator is American, and it sounds weird with an American accent. And that's why I noticed it, because I was like, that's kind of jarring to hear that word in an American accent, because it's not generally something you would associate with America. It's normally either Australian or British that you would hear something like bugger.
And I mean,
can't
I
remember
feel
the
like the
other
book
one
had a
was.
very British vibe to it, like
Mm.
very British sensibility.
I would have been very surprised
It's
if he
very
chose to set
proper.
it in England, given that he hasn't set a single book in
No.
another country other than America before. And
Maybe
if I
it
was going to
was-
make the leap,
Maybe it was because he was trying to make the character seem kind of pompous and, you know,
I think he was going for this sort of
straight-laced.
quaint
Kind
feel.
of when it kind of just turned out seeming British.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
think about it, the timing we're placing it in, the main city being grey and dreary, the train, there being an orphanage could almost be a boarding school kind of a vibe, like
Yeah.
an
So
island
he was on the
with a
train
small
for way
village.
too long to be anywhere in England. Like he was on the train for like 6 hours. There is
Yeah.
no way you could be
But
on
if
a
he's
train.
going to an
for, like,
island, if he's going to an island off the coast of Scotland,
Yeah.
maybe.
It seemed too warm, though.
Yeah.
It seemed
I
like a
was
nice warm
imagining
place.
kind of New York, New Jersey, and he was going out to like the Connecticut coast was where I was thinking. But
You know, like when it comes to Aaron, like instead of 70s, 80s, it could be the turn of the century. Because you know there was a lot of movies about people being in cubicles and feeling really depressed and anxious. So it could be sort of that
Other
time
than-
as well. Yeah.
yeah. I think it's just a really cool, like he's alternated, that's not a word. Alternated? Maybe that's a word.
Alternate?
Yeah, reality. He's just
Yeah.
alternated reality, which is
Oh, look.
cool.
Reality.
Alternate.
Alternate. There we go.
I think that he pretty much
Reality.
didn't. I doubt very much he put that much time into placing it in a particular time and just really went with what technology is available, and that was it. And so we're trying to read a lot of details into it based on some things about
And
technology.
again, that's why I feel like for what Karina and Naomi said, and I agree with it, it was hard to know who it was aimed at, because for a younger audience, you don't put too much effort into your world building, but for an older audience, like we're trying to figure out, like it's a bit like this is a bit like the sketch you make before you paint the thing, if it makes sense. Like
For me, like, because I was reading it like it was basically Good Omens fic, I just kind of read, like, that kind of just filled in all the background for me. Like, it had a similar sort of sensibility, so I'm just like, oh, that's what he's going for, which is probably why I thought it was British.
It does play into it. I would probably just go with the fact that he was trying to keep it in a fairly recognizable world, so he was going for that fill-in effect. So
but I also appreciated that we're not arguing, we're discussing, is it America, is it England?
It wasn't spelt out, which was
is it
kind of
even
nice.
Australia, and he's going up to the Gold Coast, it could be anywhere.
Yeah, it definitely had a
I
vibe
liked.
that it was English-speaking country. It could have been New Zealand. Maybe not warm enough for New Zealand. Anyway.
Definitely rainy enough.
Good point.
Yeah, he's in Wellington and he's gone up the Kapiti Coast, but like Naomi said, that's only an hour away, so maybe not.
Yeah, like he was on the train for like 6 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, we're guessing that he's in London. He could have been in Brum. Who knows? The Cerulean Sea.
I think the main thing for me was just the start of the book was very. It felt like a book for small people, like young, like middle to higher primary. And then as the story progressed, it felt like it was for an older and older audience. And I'm like, that's fine if it's a series of books, but this is a single book. Like, it felt like it was a different tone, like for a different type of audience as the book went along. That makes sense. I don't know if it was just because
no, it totally makes sense
to it rather than reading it.
Just none of that bothered me at all. It didn't even pick up on it at all.
I think I was really ready for something nice and light and easy, so I was kind of glad that it was kind of simple, like a kid's book. But I do know what you mean, because I was like, oh, maybe this is a kid's book and I could buy it for my library. And then after I finished, or getting towards the end of it, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not buying it for my library.
I think that's why I think about it too, because I'm like, oh, maybe the kids will know.
Yeah.
I think it is aimed at that age, though. Like, after watching The Babysitter's Club, it's aimed at that age and it deals with those kinds of issues as well.
Yeah.
It's just that it probably would be one of those ones that parents would complain about.
Yeah. already had the
Yeah.
with that. So
Maybe more young adult.
I don't think it's aimed at that age necessarily. I just think that he wrote a fairly open book that could be read by that age if they wanted to.
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
thing.
Like I wouldn't have issues recommending it with someone
like
younger.
an open, if you've got a family, you go, yeah, they're a progressive left open family. They've got an 11-year-old. I'd recommend this book.
Yeah.
You know, and I know what you mean, Naomi, because they're the beginning of it. Not that I'm trying, but Harry Potter has that feel at the beginning of it, like being locked under the stairs with a horrible family, and you know, it's all that Lemony Snicket type thing. You know, it's all hyper bad. You know, and then
her books progress as her audience gets older. Like
which
the
is
whole
why
idea was
you go,
book 7 is not for the same age group that book 1 is, but that's because it was sort of written for you to read while you're growing. It's not designed to read all at once for a small person. As an adult, I read all of it all at once, do what you want, you're an adult. But like, it's like those series of books like that where they start off often for like a middle to upper high, primary school. If it's like a coming of age type story where you're aging with the characters, often the story will become more progressive as you read more. It's like going from Sweet Valley Twins to Sweet Valley High and then Sweet Valley University.
Okay.
I'd be curious that everyone read the beginning as being like for a younger audience, because like
I didn't think
I
it was
didn't feel that.
bit unclear as to
it just had that hyper bad thing that, you know.
Yeah, but to me, like I said, to me it reminded me of Joe versus the Volcano, which is not a movie that was made for kids, but it wasn't exactly like a complex idea either.
I think it's the writing style, because it does tend on the side of talking down to the audience a little bit. Which
I didn't get that feel. I just felt like it was a light book. I didn't feel like I was talked down to. I just felt like it was a light book. That was all.
I did.
Same. Yeah.
Was there something in particular, Karina?
Sorry?
Was there something in particular that made you feel like...
Oh, I can't remember. It was like 2 weeks ago.
Okay, no, that's fine.
In audiobook format makes it worse.
True.
Sorry, notes. Very few notes.
There was definitely a lot of speechifying throughout the book.
Yeah.
Multiple characters making speeches about the state of the world and how people treat each other.
Yeah. Try to find it. So at first I started debating whether or not Linus was just a Bella Swan, and then I decided that he was a Sophie from Howl's Moving Castle instead.
Oh, I was thinking Miyazaki vibes as well. Yeah.
Hyperrealism as well sort of plays into that.
Yeah. Alternate universe reality. Yeah. Playing around with history.
Arthur's a bit nicer than Hal, though.
Yeah.
What was that, sorry?
That Arthur is a bit nicer than Hal.
Oh, Hal's a bit mean, so...
Hal's an asshole, be honest.
Yeah, he's meant to be a lovable asshole.
I still stand by, I think Sophie's too good for him, but that's just me.
She should be with Calcifer.
You should kick
that's what this book was then, was it?
Out with her new adopted son, and whose name I've forgotten, and Calcifer, and it's their you know, Scarecrow who turns into somebody else. But you know, anyway, we're going off topic.
That's not.
Just seeing a lot of influences.
Yeah.
So,
what was the wyvern called again? What was his name? Started with
Theodore.
Theodore. Sorry.
The whole time I was reading him, I was picturing the dragon from How to Train Your Dragon. What's the little black dragon? Toothless. I was picturing Toothless the whole time. I was like, yeah, that's what
I could
in my
not
head.
figure out how big he was, because I felt like he must be a reasonable size, but then he was like
People keep
chattering in his ear, and I was like, how big is Theodore?
No, I thought he was little.
A large cat.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought he was like pug size. That was my
Yeah.
thoughts. Yeah.
Him and Calliope were kind of going up against it. I remember them saying that he was only slightly bigger than Calliope. I remember that line.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was that was similar in size. So and that was what I think made me think of Toothless, and then also because have you guys seen How to Train Your Dragon?
Yeah,
many times.
I watched the beginning of it.
I saw a thing about how when they animated the character for that, it was based off a lot of things about cats, and so then I saw that. Then with the whole I couldn't get that image out of my head when I was listening to that part. Every time he was mentioned, I'm picturing him looking like that.
It makes sense in terms of the incitement and the fluttering of the wings and everything.
And the just like lovableness, I think, is probably why.
And he was like a puppy where he was too big for his paws.
Yes.
Yes.
Falling out. I was like, oh.
Oh, I recently, this is off topic, I'm so sorry. But I recently met my cousin's puppy who's 6 months old now. And he's got, he jumps up and he's the same size as me, like height as me. And he's 6 months old. And he's like, his paws are so big for himself as well. I'm like, you're going to be a big puppy.
Is he a Great Dane or something?
He's a mix of a lot of things, I think.
Okay, he's a Bitzer. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But he jumped on me. I was like, oh, like I'm 5'3", and I went, you're like my height.
No,
you're a puppy.
Not fully grown yet.
He's not fully grown.
Oh
He's not even grown into his paws yet.
Although sometimes the paws can be deceptive. Dee Dee, based on her paws, you'd think she was a bigger dog, but she's not. Anyway.
I think what we said before was this was a good book. You know, I didn't love it, didn't hate it. But what I do like is that I think from whatever he said, I will check out this author and some of his romance novels because I think that is totally up my alley. I'd like to read some of them.
I've read most of them, so if you want to talk about them, well, just let me know.
I need some recommendations because, like this, like reading what I've read, and if there's more saucy times, then, you know, up for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. But he writes more emotional pieces than anything else. Like, there'll be some saucy times, but they're heavily emotional. One series is just like, oh my God, I just feel like I'm constantly sad. Thank God this ends up in a good place.
No.
I don't want to read that.
Whereas there's another series.
That one.
He's got another series that spins off of that one, which is just like, oh my God, everybody's insane, but I can't stop laughing and I'm having the best time.
That sounds like it would be good.
Yeah.
Does he do any one-offs? I have enough series in my life. Does he have
wait, just a second. I will just let me bring up my Kindle so that I can pull up all the books for you.
Or my library.
Yes. TJ Klune. Oops, it helps if you spell the name right. Okay. Yeah, so he does have one-offs. How to Be a Normal Person actually features a asexual as the main character in a romance.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. So that one's a bit of an interesting one. Trying to find the first book. The Bear Otter and the Kid is the one that I was talking about. That's extremely difficult in terms of emotions because
is it about two guys and their son?
It's Bear and the Kid are brothers, and Bear's mother leaves them when Bear turns 18 and is about to start university. His mother abandons them, and he now has to raise his 6-year-old brother by himself. And both of them have, I'm not sure if you call it depression, but something very muchly that makes them sad all the time, and trying to deal with all of that. And the kid is also a definitive genius, so that makes it interesting. And the Lightning Struck Heart is extremely insane. It's basically the main character is a magician. His best friend's a unicorn who sadly had his had his horn cut off, who's extremely horny and gets with a dragon.
Okay, see, that one seems more up my alley.
That one's my list.
Yep. So that series is insane. That's got 4 books in that series. And he ends up with the knight, so excellent. Along with the unicorn with the dragon. Don't ask me how they do it. I don't know. Tell Me It's Real is probably the one that I thought was the closest to this book, in that the lead characters feel very much like a very similar type person. He's a bigger person who doesn't think very well of himself and that sort of stuff. And that one features, it goes on in a series, and it features people who are, is it trans when you, no, it's not trans. When the people, somebody who flips their gender constantly, like day by day.
Gender fluid.
Gender fluid.
Gender fluid.
Yeah.
Features a character who's gender fluid. They're getting I think they've just recently had their story released. And then there's also a, oh fuck, my terminology's shit tonight.
Whoa, 2 swear words in the same sentence from Mel.
Talk around it.
People who like to dress up, guys who like to dress up like they're women.
Drag queen?
Thank you, drag queen. The second book features a drag queen as the lead. And that series is really good. That's the one, it's funny as that one. Lots of feelings and stuff, but funny and not too dark like the other one that I was talking about. That one's set in the real world, so that's something.
What's that one called?
That one's called Tell Me It's Real, the first one.
I love the cover. It's so like 90s,
The Tell Me It's
7
Real
p.m. TV shows kind of cover.
Yep. And the second one in that series, no, that's the last one. I haven't read that one yet. The second one in that series is called The Queen and the Homo Jock King.
Oh my God, that's adorable.
So that's a good one.
So what's the unicorn one called again?
The unicorn
The
one
Lightning
is called...
Struck Heart.
Thank you.
That one's on my list.
Excellent. Please do read that one. You can just read the first one and not go on, which there's 4 books in the series. Yeah, it's probably, I would actually almost recommend it, because it does get it just keeps getting zanier.
Even worse. Yeah.
Olive Juice, I would recommend not reading unless you just want to cry. Exactly. It will tear your heart out and it will never return. Do not read that one.
My mum
the Wolf
just
Song.
juice to me all the time.
I read it because, he'd become an auto read. He's no longer an auto read because that one killed me.
Oh, no.
I'm just more cautious because, excellent job with the emotions, man, but really, really way to destroy me. There's also got another series which is very popular. It starts with Wolf Song. I have not read that series because I wasn't into doing the whole shifter thing anymore. I was sort of overdoing. Yeah, I was over shifters.
We got a lot of that with vaginal fantasy books, didn't we?
Yeah.
There was a lot of shifters, werewolves, wolf people generally.
And anything you guys can do to support him, I think, is a good thing, because all of these books were published through Dream Spinner Press before all of that went kaput, and so he hasn't had a lot of money coming from them because of all of that, and he's managed to get his rights back. Yeah, it was terrible. So he managed to get his rights back, and he's republished these independently.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to get them, please do, because that'll help and support him after some pretty bad times with that. That's one of the reasons why he was very, very happy to get Tor as a publisher, which I think you can feel, like after having read a lot of his books, I can feel the Tor editing process when I read this one.
Right.
Because he's been pulled in. He's been reined in. Because I was like...
Spinner really screwed a lot of authors over.
Oh, God, yeah, they did. He was just one of the ones that I knew about.
What was that, Elizabeth?
I said Dream Spinner really screwed a lot of authors over.
And they went under?
I
don't know.
Well, essentially they did, but they refused to admit it, and then they weren't paying their authors and
still selling their books.
Exactly.
Oh.
It was really awful situation. Eventually, the Romance Writers Association got onto them. I don't know what happened after that, because that was around about the time that I had to go off Twitter. So
yeah.
But yeah, anything to support those authors, I'm like, yes, please do that.
Cool.
But yeah, I could tell that he'd been reined in on this book, because I kept waiting for the funny to be more than it was. Like, there was funny in this, but it was very restrained for him. He's usually quite hilarious.
I thought this was more sort of sweet than funny. It was a very sweet book.
He definitely wrote
Sometimes
sweet
you
as
want
well.
sweet.
He definitely wrote sweet as well, but usually the sweet is with the zany.
Yeah.
The zany was really restrained here, like almost non-existent
Right.
comparatively, and I was like, oh, okay, that's different for him. I think that must be tall, because I've never known him to want to restrain the zany. Because even in that one that I was talking about, Bear, Otter and the Kid, that was even pretty zany still.
Well,
All right,
sorry
well,
if you can hear my child having a good time in the shower.
They're just having a good time.
is there
He
anything
loves
else anybody
loves
wants
the
to talk
shower bath.
about from the book? No, we're good? Awesome. All right. Well, anybody who joined us tonight, thank you very much for joining us. And we'll hopefully see you next month where we're talking about The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin. Night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.